This is the new for 2025 Eureka Oro Single Dose Pro. The headline feature that I want to tell you about today is this right here. It's the new king size dial. If you look back through the history of the Mignon line, Eureka has been listening to the user community and making changes over time to those grinders. And this dial here is one of those things that they've been iterating on and evolving based off of the user feedback. So the first thing they received a lot of feedback on was the diameter of the dial itself. The early models in the Mignon line only had around a 20 millimeter diameter for their dial. And so it needed to be increased in size based off that user feedback. And so they gradually over time increased it. Went to 24 millimeter and then to 27 millimeter. And then within the past year or so, they released what was referred to as the king size dial, which is actually the same size as this and very similar in design to this. And the king size dial, by being larger, solved a number of challenges. In those previous ones, there just wasn't enough granularity to be able to dial in espresso very well. So now the king size dial, we have a total of 20 numbers with 3 lines in between each of those numbers, which gives us a total of 100 marks per revolution. And for the Mignon line, specifically for this one, the Single Dose Pro, there are 3 revolutions available on this. So there's additional marks, gives you additional granularity, additional resolution, so that you can really dial in your espresso at home to the right point where it needs to be, that perfect grind size to get the perfect shot. According to what Eureka tells me, the burr movement per step, or per notch as it were, on the dial equates to 4 microns of burr movement. As I mentioned, there are 3 revolutions that have to be made in order to be able to move through the entire range to go from cold brew all the way down to Turkish. So the challenge with that is, in the previous versions of V1 of the king size dial, was you had to remember what revolution you were on. So now with the V2, they've taken that into account. So now there is a revolution counter right here at the top. So here on the dial, when you're set at the 0 point on your burrs, which means that they're touching and you can't actually grind coffee successfully, it actually says ND here on the top of the dial. So if you coarsen it up a little bit, and you can see here on the dial that once you move past about the 3 point, then it changes to the 0 revolution. This is where you start getting into the Turkish range and into the espresso range. And as you rotate it around, it will stay on 0 until you come back around to the 0 mark on the main dial. And then as you go past 0, it flips over to show that you're now on rotation 1. And then as you move through the range, it'll do the same thing, go over to revolution or rotation 2, and then on to 3. I don't believe any of the previous grinders from Eureka that I'm aware of had this capability of dialing in not only the granularity that you see here on this king size dial, but also the ability to track individual revolutions so you don't have to keep it in your head. And that's a big step forward. I'll be doing a review on this in the future, talk a little bit more about what I have observed as I've been using this new grinder, but still doing some more testing, so stay tuned. Happy brewing.